we always talk about how anti-Semitism is really a symptom of a greater problem. You graduated from Harvard University, you sat with the presidents, you're digging now into what's happening at these universities, the foreign funding, which we can talk about. What are the greater problems that you see just for America of what's happening in our institutions around the country?
So first, there is a sense of entitlement from these colleges and universities that they have no accountability for taxpayer dollars. It is important to point out that each of those schools that testified get about $1 billion a year of U.S. taxpayer funds. And their posture of these schools is, we don't have to answer to anybody. Now they know they have to answer to the United States.
It doesn't depend on the context.
No, it does not depend on the context. So that's one. They feel that they're entitled to that. They are not. They are responsible for being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Two, the governance structures of these universities are broken. A corporate board or other organizations would not function the way they are. And this is coming out in some of the documents that have been turned over because of our subpoena, that the board, some board members understood that the university presidents were failing. They were giving advice that you need to condemn this anti-Semitism explicitly, specifically, and publicly, but they didn't have the governance structure to demand that. So the governance issue needs to be addressed. The third piece is tenured faculty. I was very concerned that after that hearing, both in the case of Penn and the case of Harvard and MIT, you had 95% of the faculty members support that testimony, that the vast majority of the American people know that it does not depend on the context, that you should not have university presidents say it depends on the context to call for the genocide of Jews. Americans understand that that is wrong that they testified that way, but the fact that 95% of the faculty supported the presidents rather than standing up for protection of Jewish students, it shows that the tenured system is broken as well. And then I talk about it's an academic rot. It's not just a moral rot at the leadership level. It's an academic rot. Conservatives are consistently canceled. I've been canceled. I was removed from a board of Harvard's IOP. But there's lots of conservatives that have been not allowed to speak at campuses. So these students are not exposed to the purpose of an education, which is critical thinking, which is hearing perspectives instead of silencing any pro-Israel speaker that comes on campus. So it's an intellectual rot as well. And I also say this didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight. Certainly this has been an earthquake, but we need to stay vigilant to make sure these institutions, that we dig them out of this rot and return to American ideals and American institutions. The other piece is the foreign funding. These higher ed institutions, they need to remember they're American institutions, and they're historic stories for each one of them. In the case of Harvard, the motto of Harvard when it was founded, which is older than our country, was Veritas e Christo. So truth in Christ and Ecclesiae, and the church. Truth in Christ and the church, meaning a moral truth. They have strayed so far from that founding motto. Same with Penn, same with Yale, same with so many of these other schools. The foreign funding piece is also a rot that needs to be addressed. You have Qatari money flowing in, you have communist Chinese money flowing in, and that's going to be important for us to assert our responsibility of oversight in Congress as well.
Yeah, a lot of Saudi money as well, and the money that comes from those universities. And you're questioning, I believe you were asking some questions about foreign funding, and they kept saying, well, we have donors all over.
Donors. They avoided that question for a reason, and we passed what's called the Deterrent Act to close the loopholes, to strengthen the reporting requirements for colleges for any sources of foreign funding. And that's going to be really important. And I believe, sadly, that these universities, some are not abiding by the law and are breaking the law and are not disclosing the sources of foreign funds.
Seems like the lobby of these countries are really pushing hard, because it's at the federal level. It seems like things have slowed down. Yes, the investigation is going on, but the reports have been out there for years of the foreign funding that's going in. It doesn't have everything, but everybody knows the foreign funding and the influence at the universities. Governors are now really taking the lead this year. Hopefully, there's a bunch of them. DeSantis is doing some, Youngkin, Kemp, to really start pushing not just against the anti-Semitism on campus, but we're saying they're being a symptom of a bigger problem. But what else are they teaching these students?
Right.
So getting rid of tenure, that they have to get reviewed to make sure they don't just have carte blanche to teach whatever they want. They can teach whatever they want. They can't brainwash, right? So that's really the biggest issue that I see.